Hey, welcome to another camping survival video blog. Today I got the opportunity to do my second video with my friend Brendan Ramroth, retired from the Special Forces, U.S. Army Special Forces. Thanks again, Brendan.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so this one, I want to do a video on, Brendan and I have been talking about it, on how he would handle an active shooter situation now as opposed to before he went to combat. Actually, I also find it interesting that you said you were in 14 years before you even saw combat.
Yeah.
And you were in a total of how long?
27 years.
27 years.
Yeah.
What'd you do for your first 14 years?
75th Ranger Regiment. Just trained for, trained to support U.S. missions abroad. Went into Special Forces in '96 and pretty much continued to do the same thing, even though that was specific to the Pacific, Asia and the Pacific. We came close a number of times. It just it didn't work. I was in 3rd of the 75th when B Company went to Somalia in '93. We never participated in Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Had an opportunity in '94 to jump into Haiti when that was going sour there, and there were some American assets that looked like they might be vulnerable. Last minute, that got cut off. It was just a lot of near misses. And then because we were affiliated and assigned a geographic area, which, like I said, was Asia and the Pacific Rim, we had to stay put in the event that something happened with North Korea.
Okay.
We couldn't get obligated into the Middle East, but that was since 2001, that was the big. That's been the big spot. So that kept us out until a lot of the other groups that were going into Iraq and Afghanistan really started to get overwhelmed by the operational tempo. I certainly think the forces were up to the task, but some of the families were concerned about overuse. The equipment couldn't take constant consecutive deployments, so we slowly got incorporated into Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay, cool. And I got to apologize before we go any further here. I've got some kind of a head or chest cold going on, so if I start hacking up along in the middle of the video, try not to get anyone on anyone. So,
Sputum.
Exactly.
We'll revive you.
Thanks, man. So, yeah, we talked a little bit about this before the video, but how would you handle an active shooter situation now as opposed to before you saw combat?
I think if anything, thinking through it, in combat, it's either you're going to it because you've planned it, you're going to execute it, or your plan gets changed rather quickly because of somebody that wants to interdict your convoy, whatever it happens to be you're traveling in. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, just doing the basics really well, understanding the battle drills, understanding the capabilities and limitations of the guys on your left and right. And the unknown is, a lot of the time, we're working with host nation indigenous folks that may rise to the task, they may not. And I've seen both. The thing in here back in small town USA, we talked about it on the first video. It's always assuming that you're going to be in that position, and you don't have to be a hyper vigilant warmonger type, but be prepared. Where you spend the majority of your day here in this store, I would guess that you and your staff have probably gone through some type of active shooter drill. If this was the method of violence, if it was multiple attackers, if they came in this entrance versus that entrance, the scale of it, you can apply that to every day. You can apply that in your home, if you go to the gym. What's available to you to defend yourself, and how are you going to incorporate that? And do you practice it? That's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't. You practice from a concealed carry. You practice from a prone position, because that's where you're going to want to be if the shooting starts. How are you going to close the distance with the target and eliminate the threat while, keeping the rest of the folks here. Could be customers, could be employees. Those are the things that you have to think through, and it doesn't take. They don't have to be very grandiose, very detailed plans. Some of the simplest plans are well executed. It's like a symphony almost. It's like just to see something very well rehearsed. The more you rehearse it, obviously, the better you get at it. The more your employees would be in tune with how you're going to react, how they're going to react, and I would just say, I know after seeing it that people are capable of doing very violent things, depending on what their beliefs or their cause. Here in small town USA, like we talked about, it's not religious ideology, although it could be. A lot of it is desperation for money, for narcotics. That's probably the biggest one. So you gotta think in terms of that person that comes in here, that's looking for money for something like that. They're probably, not as. It's spur of the moment. It's not planned out. It's not thought out. It's desperate, and if it's more than one or more than two, more than three, it kind of goes back to use speed and use violence. An initial violent outcome is going to deter a lot of people from wanting to continue the fight. And
actually, you mentioned we were chatting earlier about an experience you had when you were younger.
Yeah.
And maybe you can relay that experience. And would you handle it any differently now?
No, just a couple friends and I were at a McDonald's on a Friday evening in Glendale, Arizona. We were 15, 16 years old at the time. It was something that we did every Friday. It was very familiar to us. And at some point while we were waiting in line to order, there was a gentleman there. He didn't look out of sorts. He wasn't acting strange. But out of nowhere, he produces an Uzi machine gun. Wow. And starts to brandish the weapon. But the three of us didn't react initially. It was only until another adult male closed the distance with this guy and started to detain him that we began to help him and secure him to the ground. But thinking back on it, his appearance, Middle Eastern, that wasn't shocking. And I know a lot of people like to stereotype these days. Negative, positive, we all do it. It's survivability. It didn't come into question that he was wearing Western clothing, and that could have ended very badly if he opted to shoot first rather than brandish and provoke. So, four of us took that guy down. Somebody came and moved the weapon away, and we held him there until the police came.
Wow.
Yeah. But that wasn't. Like we said earlier, at that time, that active shooter wasn't even a phrase at that point in time. But that's exactly what.
Yeah. How long has that term been around?
Oh.
I don't remember hearing it until just recently, but.
Yeah, I think it's certainly Nadal Hassan when he was on Fort Bliss. That was 2008, 9
Something
time
like that.
frame. So I'd say maybe 10 years, but it's almost getting glossed over now. Like active shooter, there is really no clear-cut way to encounter that because every workplace is different. What is an active shooter situation? Is it where there's the public? Is it could you have an active shooter in your home? I don't know. I think it's splitting hairs almost.
Yeah.
But I think you need to understand also, like, what are your implications if you do become involved to eliminate an active shooter? Do you then get perceived as somebody that might be an accomplice?
Yeah.
If you all of a sudden you pull out a weapon and at the
Tell the
same
good guys
time,
and the bad guys.
yeah, law enforcement's beginning to show up. There's protocol, man. If it's full compliance, you do whatever they say, and then you worry about clearing your name after the
Right.
fact, because you know they're going to take the shot. You know, they're going to take the shot even sometimes if you don't have a weapon.
Right.
If they perceive that they're in fear for their life, that's all they have to say. So I don't agree with that. I think as law enforcement professionals, they should be better than that. But boy, you've seen it in the news lately. It can go south that fast. You know, so think about those things. Well, okay, you know, threat's eliminated or the threat is subdued. What happens then? You know, who's going to cover? Who's going to call? Who's going to search? Who's going to, you know, I'm sure you have enough material in here that you could bind this guy up so he's not going anywhere. But that might not be the case if you were at, you know, say the you know, county tax office. You know, you got to be able to think through it. Like, what's here that I can use to my advantage.
Right.
So, yeah, you know, and I hope that people don't ever have to find themselves in that position. But it's constantly like when we used to talk about patrolling in the woods. You're always looking for that next place to find cover in the event that the bullets started flying. Urban patrolling, even, you know, shooting happens. What do I do? I have to protect myself. People should be thinking in those terms every day. If you're driving, you know, you're in the car line at school, you're driving down, you know, Wicker Street or any one of these places, because they can touch off that quickly.
It's interesting. It kind of frustrates me that most people don't even think about this stuff. They go somewhere, whether it's a theater or the store, and they're just walking around oblivious.
Yeah.
And then people like, you know, some of us, everywhere we are, we're maintaining a vigilant attitude.
Absolutely.
And thinking, okay, exits, watching this individual, watching that individual.
Well, if you remember when we were talking about it earlier, I try not to give off that persona that I'm twitchy and that I'm always like, what's good? And it's not like that. And somewhere along, you know, somewhere over the course of the last couple of years, the term hypervigilance has kind of become a negative aspect of somebody. I don't see it that way. If it was going back to talking about seeing what wrong looks like, that is the biggest teaching point for me, is seeing somebody do it wrong or getting it wrong myself and then being able to fix it. Go to the mall and look. Go to a big city and look at people that are just oblivious to what could potentially happen to them. And don't be like those people.
Right.
If you don't know how to be the best, look at the worst and don't be the worst. You know, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but we can certainly all improve on our vigilance. And then going back to knowing when enough is enough. Don't be who's the neighborhood watch guy that shot and killed that boy in Florida, Trayvon Martin. I don't remember, George something. Really.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy, man. Don't be a violence monger who, you tend to over-escalate a situation, and next thing you know, you're facing murder charges because you just killed somebody that it probably could have went the other way.
Just popped into my head too, a pharmacist. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a number of years ago, there's a pharmacist in his place of work. Excuse me. And someone came in to rob him. He pulled out his gun and started shooting at him, and he followed him outside and ended up shooting him in the back and killing him.
Yeah.
And the pharmacist got in trouble for
Yep.
that, because you can't
Yep.
just try and kill someone. The threat was gone.
Yeah.
So you step back from it.
Yeah, it's a good point. In North Carolina recently, over the last couple of years, they have the stand your ground laws. But understand them. I mean, and I am not an expert on these, so get into the literature. But you're absolutely right. If somebody's coming into your house to, steal, to whatever, but then as soon as you present yourself and you know, you give them the opportunity to do what you're saying or turn around and leave the house. Yeah, you can't follow that up with shots like that. So yeah, just understanding that it's an escalation of force. You know, verbal warnings. You know, if they still pose the threat. Understand what that threshold, you know, your threshold is though before you're going to pull the trigger, because number one, you know, you don't want to shoot and kill somebody if you don't have to. Nobody wants to live with that. And number two, you don't want the headache of court and some family out there thinking, you know, we're going to get ours now, and your life is, you know, your quality of life is certainly over with, because you're gonna either pay out a bunch to some other family, or you're gonna pay out a bunch to a lawyer, or both, and that really isn't. Yeah, actions have consequences, and just understand that, you know, lethal force has the ultimate consequence. And there's so much online that you can look at to try and get smart on. Not examples, maybe poor examples, but yeah, just know, or you know, talk to law enforcement. You know, they're certainly not gonna tell you how to do it, but they can maybe help you through some of the points that aren't as clear or not as well understood as you would like them to be. But yeah, it's not just an open, you know, invitation to shoot anybody that comes into your house. If while the law tends to kind of read that way, you know, there's also there's moral implications. There's emotional implications. You know, are you have children in the home? Are they going to see this? I mean, there's nothing worse than you know, the scene of a gunfight. I mean, it's brutal. So, yeah, that's. But yeah, you know, active shooter. Just be prepared. I know that is like the weakest, watered down answer, but you have to play it over in your head time and time and time again for every new little facet of the situation that you find yourself in. Driving, walking, daytime, nighttime. You know, am I armed? What am I armed with? Is it going to over-penetrate if I have to take this shot? You know, where am I going to find cover? How am I going to reload? What do I have to reload? What if I don't need to take the shot? What if I don't even have to get in the situation at all? You know, I'll tell you a story real quick while we're talking about this. Me and a friend of mine back in Glendale, Arizona, we were underage. We had fake IDs. I don't condone that anymore, but we're out drinking, and we're leaving. We're having a good time, and we see this guy and this gal. They're probably in their late 20s having an argument, and this guy has really put his hand on this girl. And being that I had a little bit to drink, I thought, oh, I'm gonna right this situation. And I went to the car and got a tire iron out of the car and approached the guy and said, hey man, it's not cool to do that. It's not cool to put your hands on a woman. And he starts mouthing off, and I'm mouthing off, and it de-escalated the situation, and now his attention is focused on me, and I'm not worried about it, because there's two of us. I've got a tire iron, and I'm not worried about it. So he says, put the tire iron down and we'll go at it. I said, I'm not putting it down. Back and forth, back and forth. Well, I wound up putting the tire iron down, and we're going to square off. And we do. Within 5 seconds, his girlfriend picked up the tire iron and starts hitting me with it.
No kidding.
Saying, stop hitting him.
Whoa.
And I'll tell you, it was a long time ago. I will never, and cops will tell you, those are the worst calls to go to, domestic violence. I will never get in the middle of a domestic violence. I will never get in the middle of, if I needed to, if it looked like it was, life, limb, or eyesight, then yes. But I'm better prepared. I'm better armed. I'm more aware of what could potentially happen, and that could really turn on you. So
yeah, definitely cool story.
Yeah, thanks.
Excuse me. So I think that's the end of this video. Unless you have anything else to say.
No, I appreciate you having me in, and I know the camera doesn't get to see Hunter here. He's our cinematographer.
There you go. So
you get to see
all the stuff.
Come
Camping
here.
survival gear.
Stock up.
So go to campingsurvival.com. You can see all of our gear, and definitely give us comments down below. We want feedback. What should our next video be? Give us some ideas, please. And thanks again, Brendan.
Yes, my pleasure, Tom.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Have a great day, and thanks for visiting Camping Survival Blog.